I had the opportunity to work with the RightMessage team on developing their Personalization Masterclass. RightMessage is a fantastic tool that helps you personalize the content on your website. I thought it would be fun to show you a little bit behind the scenes on how I built this course, really from start to finish. I'll show you the tools that I use, the workflow that I have, how I go from one step to the next to the next. From the very beginning of this, when I was speaking with Brennan Dunn, the co-founder of RightMessage, about what he wanted to accomplish in this course, all the way to the tool that we're using to publish this thing and share it with the world. So I hope you enjoy this behind the scenes peek at what it takes to build the high performance course that we did for the Personalization Masterclass for RightMessage.com. So I keep a lot of my scratching and musing all the way down to, actual scripts in Apple's Notes app. I think a lot of folks use Bear. I've used Ulysses and like it a lot, but I've kind of tended over the last year to move into Apple's Notes app. I love the way that it syncs and it's pretty easy to use. This is kind of where it started, with a conversation with Brennan, and it's where I kept a lot of notes on how we wanted to shape this project, and then looked at some of the things he had already done, some outlines he had already put down, and then I looked at those things and said, well, maybe I could combine this to that, and I think we're missing this. And we also really wanted to focus on an audience that didn't know necessarily what segmenting was and wasn't necessarily super tech savvy about this stuff. So we wanted to really break it into easy to understand, easy to digest content that wasn't intimidating for someone. So, there's places in the course where I explain what B2C is, not assuming that everybody knows that that means business to consumer. That's the level that we really wanted to be with this. The course outline kind of looked like this as I was shaping it, and it really became closer to this, where we really got kind of dialed in on what this first course, this Personalization Masterclass wanted to be. Here you can see that I've kind of got these profiles of these personas that I built real quickly, and then I would use these in the course. So I would just kind of keep these notes to myself and then bring them into my development inside of Keynote. I didn't do all of my writing, however, inside of Notes. Sometimes I would do my writing directly inside of Keynote, which became kind of the development platform for this course. I'm a visual person, and so there were times where I would know what the visual looked like before I knew what the words I was going to use are. And I would then bring that over to Keynote, and I would start development there, and I would even do my writing there. So let's move over to Keynote. I'll show you what I do there. Here I am inside of Keynote for one of the lessons, which is a workshop on crafting personas. So this is an example of, here's kind of my script for that, and I would think through this and literally copy and paste. So my first slide, and I would break up with line breaks what I'm doing with slide to slide. This first couple of sentences becomes the first slide. And so that's how I would build each of these slides. Sometimes I would maneuver. I never let myself be rigid to the text document. That's how a lot of folks work, and I think that works great. But for me, I'm always pushing creativity and innovation even in the development platform. So I'm happy to move off of it. One of the things that's important to me in learning is a delightful visual experience. So I spent quite a bit of time on animations, and if you take the course, you'll see that there's just a lot of animations, and I'm not at all into animation for animation's sake. That's a waste of everybody's time. But thinking very closely, how can animation help tell the story? So this is an example of how this slide works. And it's talking about segments, which is a group of people, and then breaking those out into individual personas to make the point of this particular slide. So that's an example of how I'm trying to use animation to help tell the story. And the next thing that happens is we say, the best way to do that is to ask questions. So the graphics are meaningful, the visuals are meaningful, they help tell a story, they help drive a story. Again, using animation to tell the story. This slide talks about aggregating the data and the research that we're building around personas into groups that make sense, and then finally distilling that into kind of a single profile or dashboard. There's actually quite a bit going on inside of this graphic. I'll quickly show you what that is. This is two different slides, and if you look closely, this slide, this is one graphic. And here on the next slide, that's actually broken up. So this is a front, and then inside is another element, and then there's a back. And the folder looks like the folder, but we get this middle document kind of popping out of the folder. So the way that I build that is, these are a number of animations that are happening. And if I go ahead and preview that, you'll see what's cooking. So those animations are showing up. And then this group, this last one shows up. Immediately after that one is done, then there is an automatic transition right here that says, I guess, wait half a second, and then automatically go to the next slide, which is this slide. And the animation that's happening on that slide is simply this image is sliding up. So there's a motion action attached to this image. Some of these are built in, if you're familiar with Keynote, some are built out, and some are actions. So in this way, it's just an action. So it's 2 different slides, it's 5 or 6 different components moving, but to the audience or to the learner, it's all just very seamless as I discuss things. And so I'll be talking about aggregating, and here comes that file, and boom, the next slide. So it's very elegant and very seamless. So that's an example of how I like to use automation inside of Keynote and inside of learning environments to help tell the story. My advice and my guidance there is, don't use animation frivolously. Don't make every slide some fancy animation to the next slide. That gets old really fast. If I have to wait half a second for some stupid thing to happen every single time I do it, it gets annoying. But if I am using my animation constructively to help tell the story, that really is motivating and helps drive the learning experience for the learner. What I do next is I use an app called ScreenFlow to record my presentation in full screen of the keynote. I simply press play on the keynote, it goes to full screen, and ScreenFlow records it for me. When I'm actually running the lesson and recording the lesson, there are a few tools that are pretty indispensable. First is the MacBook Pro. I like to record my full screen presentation, my keynote presentation on the MacBook Pro. I like to do it on this device rather than like a great big 27-inch iMac, because the screen resolution and physical size is just easier to work with of the output video. I also use an app called Duet, and I put that on my iPad, and it's also then an app that I put on my MacBook, and the 2 devices then talk to each other. This becomes a second screen to the MacBook. That's why it's connected here with the Lightning cable. This means that I can read my speaker notes from this screen, and I can run the presentation in full screen from this. And ScreenFlow will only record what's happening here. So it makes it really easy for me to comfortably read what's happening while you see what's happening. And the other tool that's pretty indispensable to that workflow is this, my microphone. It's the Rode NT1-A. It's a really great condenser mic, great sound out of it. And so I'll speak into that while reading from here, and you see what's happening on the full screen presentation coming out of the MacBook Pro. Once I'm done with my screen recording, I'll do as much editing as I can right inside of ScreenFlow. I want to get a really clean file into Premiere Pro, which I jump into next, so that I can do some post-production and bring in some visuals and things like that. And so I'll do as much editing right here and clean up areas or mistakes or lags or anything like that. I'll clean all that up inside of ScreenFlow and have a really nice self-contained file that I'll then bring into Premiere Pro. Once I have exported from ScreenFlow as an MP4, I will bring that file into Premiere Pro, and there's really not a lot that I do here in Premiere Pro. I don't do any color correction or anything. I just use it for titles and overlay graphics and some of the simple things like that. All of my editing, again, for the most part, is done inside of ScreenFlow. If I even find any cuts or edits I need to make, I'll obviously do that here, but it's a really pretty simple workflow, and then I export as an MP4, and I'm ready to upload to our delivery platform. Our delivery platform for the RightMessage Personalization Masterclass was Podia, and so this is a really simple to use application, web app. You just upload your video files and fill out some information, and you're ready to go. And here we can navigate the course and do our thing, and it's a great place for hosting video content and downloads and files like that. So the learner comes in and begins their really great learning experience, and we're ready to go. That is how I put it all together. I hope you've enjoyed this one person's way and workflow in building a course. I'll obviously put a link in case you're interested in RightMessage.com and in the tool itself, but you don't have to be. If you've just gotten something out of kind of the insights that I've delivered, I think that's pretty cool. If you've got your own way of doing things or advice, or you saw things I was doing that was a little bit haywire that I could improve on, I'm all ears, so please do share with me. Thanks. I'll talk to you next time.